somebody recently said to me that they're like, oh, you've changed so much. Like, you're not anything like you used to be. And I just had this weird thought. I was like, I feel like since I've started traveling, that I maybe am finally becoming who, honestly, like who I would have been if life hadn't happened to me.
Hi, I'm Lucia, and you're listening to Stories of Ordinary Lives. We often think that only the famous have interesting stories, but I believe that everyone does. In each episode, I sit down with someone you've never heard of, but whose voice matters. From cities to villages, across continents, we uncover the rich tapestry of human experience, showing that we are more alike than we think. Welcome to Stories of Ordinary Lives, where every life tells a tale worth hearing. Hi everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. Before we dive into today's episode, if you'd like to share some kindness today, just hit that subscribe button. It's a small gesture that helps more people discover the incredible stories my guests have to share. Thank you, and now on to our next episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Stories of Ordinary Lives. Today I have again very good special guest. What's really special about this guest is I've never actually met her before. We don't really know each other, but somehow we managed to follow each other on Instagram. So thank you, algorithm. Might have been because we both been in Guatemala or something like, we don't know. Somehow we managed to follow each other. And I don't know about you, but sometimes you just feel that you can have something in common with other person despite not really meeting them. And that's what I had with Pamela. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for agreeing, because obviously it must be quite strange. Some stranger messaging you on Instagram, hey, would you come to my podcast?
Well, at first I was a little bit confused, but then when I saw that it was about ordinary lives, because as I did mention to you, I'm like, I'm just an ordinary person here, bumbling about trying a new way of living, but I'm just very ordinary. But so yeah, this works.
Good, yeah, because obviously I am talking to ordinary people. Whatever that really means, because we are all kind of ordinary and yet extraordinary in our own ways. So yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's start. Obviously, this is about you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm currently actually living in Hong Kong, teaching English at a learning academy. I took directional change of my life. I'm going to say first, about 7 years ago, I had been married for 20 plus years, and I had 3 kids, and we lived in suburbia Canada, and just had a very, very traditional life with, just a very traditional life. I worked part-time and did most of the child rearing and amazing kids. Anyways, 7 years ago, decided to end the marriage, and so had a few years of some in-between time. And then going 2.5 years ago now, it started on my 50th birthday. I turned 50. I had jobs that I liked. I was, maybe getting a bit complacent with them. My kids had all sort of moved away. My youngest had recently moved away to go to university. And I just was feeling a little adrift. And then, over the next 2 months, I was really trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I had good friends. I had, 2 jobs that I liked. I started, I just had this idea of traveling. Honestly, somebody that I went to high school died. And, that just sort of makes you reevaluate your life. And I thought, like, what would you change? What would I change if I knew I only had a year to live? And it just, like, really loud. I was like, everything. I would change everything. which, yeah. So over the next 6 months, I set about, I jokingly call it like I quit my life. Like I found a replacement at my one job. I gave notice at my other. I sold my condo. I started selling all my things. And I'd had this thought that I would do a year of travel, some volunteering, some just traveling. Yeah, and then at the end of the year, I don't know, start over again somewhere else. Yeah, so I started. I did a year of travel, but about 3/4 of the way through the year, I was like, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to have a normal life or regular or traditional. I want to keep doing this. So I had been working on getting certified as an online English teacher. One of my jobs used to be teaching school. So yes, so it's been. I did 2 full years of just traveling. The first year, literally just traveled and volunteered at different places. I don't know, got into pet sitting. And then the second year, more travel, more pet sitting, but teaching English online. And then honestly, just because it's pretty expensive, not living anywhere and only teaching online. So I started looking at, like, people kept saying, oh, why don't you take a teaching job somewhere? And I randomly applied for a job in Hong Kong, and got it, and thought, I guess I'll move to Hong Kong for a year. And
Wow.
so I had never had a big desire to go to Hong Kong. I had wanted to travel to Asia. And so I am using this. I don't get a lot of time off, but I have 3 sort of trips planned where, on breaks. But yeah, I'm living in Hong Kong and I love it here, and it's really, really different. But yeah, and so over the last 2 years, I did like 4 different continents, and I don't actually remember how many countries. And just, yeah, really I grew up in small town Saskatchewan, and had I'm just gonna say a very, very small life growing up. And then I spent like 20 years having a very traditional marriage and living in suburbia. And yeah, the last 2, 3 years has been just a constant outside of my comfort zone all of the time. So that's my little story.
Okay, there's a lot we need to deep into. Beautiful. Okay, so let's start then from the beginning, as I kind of always do, because there's a lot to unpack here, right? Okay, so you said you grew up in Canada. So when you were a child, were you dreaming of living like abroad? Were you dreaming of being adventurous or anything like that?
No, I mean, as a teenager, I had the chance to go to New York. I danced growing up, and I got a chance to go to New York when I was 15, and that was literally the only time that I'd been outside of Canada, other than I think a trip to Disneyland when I was 7. But no, I did. After the New York trip, I had some thoughts like, oh, I would, I thought for bed I would like to go to New York and be a dancer. And then I realized it wasn't actually that good, and that wasn't going to happen. And but no, I have a very clear memory of telling my grandpa, bless him, he was wonderful, wonderful. But I do remember saying, like, when I get older, I'm going to like move to Toronto or New York, and kind of like, not in a mean way, but he just laughed. He was like, oh, you're such a silly girl with your big dreams. Like, our people don't do that. We just were very, I don't know. I was the first person within my immediate family to get a university degree, sort of thing. So like, It was just a small life. So no, traveling abroad, that was not ever really a thing. I did want to leave, but I didn't really have any, I didn't know, examples or a lot of, support about how to do that.
So it was the thing your parents kind of taught you that is the meaning of life. What was it? What were you supposed to do?
Honestly, I grew up divorced parents, few marriages between them. Not, people that, I can look back now and say like probably did the best they could, but I think I just like grew up in a place where you just survived. There was no deep meaning of life's conversation. There was no, what will your future? I was actually really like even quite bright, but there was no like, oh, you should go to university. I just came from people who just survived. That's kind of all. Yeah, that was it. So yeah.
So then when you married, did you hope maybe that the marriage will create some sort of better, stable environment for you? Or?
Yeah. Well, and I did. I'm going to say I married somebody sort of. I mean, we had not completely similar backgrounds, but again, both sort of smaller lives, and we did have sort of big dreams. And I'm going to say that we built a life together and for our kids that weren't like much bigger than either of us had. And we did some traveling with the kids, and my ex, in fact, did a lot of traveling. Ended up doing a lot of traveling with his job, and while we were married, I did. Get to go to Europe a couple times and did some more traveling. In Central America, Mexico, and stuff like that. And yes, my life got bigger. We sort of, worked really hard and built a bigger life. And yeah, our kids had much bigger lives than either of us did growing up. So yes, I started to, I guess just be exposed to different things. And I did have, it was kind of a cool experience. I went to university and actually got my teaching degree while my kids were small. It took about like 10 years. And in the midst of that, I had an opportunity to go and spend a month in France. My minor was teaching French as a second language. We lived in a little French community. And so I got to spend a month in France doing this sort of condensed course. And that was like the first time that I had ever done sort of any travel by myself or abroad. And yeah, it was quite overwhelming, but also really, really wonderful. And I'm going to say that was maybe the first time and the start of like, oh, one day I would like to travel more. But yeah, that was when I was 32. That was sort of the first time that I'd had the idea of traveling, or the idea that you could travel solo or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
wonderful. Yeah. Okay, France. Well, so that's turned out quite well. So it kind of sounded to me like the marriage was probably good. So what happened? Why did it not work out in the end?
I'm just gonna say, yeah. It was kind of built on just truthfully looking back now, a very shaky foundation. And to be fully honest, there was addiction problems. Some pretty severe addiction problems. And also, that I sort of ignored for, 20 some years, because just trying to build a life and give my kids something that I never had. And and then as honestly as he got more successful in his career and as our life got bigger and bigger, then things just started getting more and more difficult to contain. And this is a big, huge thing. Wow, I was trying to decide. And the longer we were married, the smaller that I got. The person that I am now, like me from even like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, would not recognize somebody who Asia by herself. The longer we were married, the more successful he got, the more the addiction problems got worse, and the smaller and smaller and smaller that I got, truthfully. So until I sort of felt like that I was just going to, I don't know, lose myself completely unless something changed. So, Yeah, so it was in some ways, we have three incredible kids. I'm super, super blessed with my children, how close they are to each other, how close I am to them, how supportive they are with me on this journey that I now am on, and lots of good memories. But it was also, yes, it was looked like a very good normal life from the outside, but as lots of lives are, it's totally different inside a relationship. And sometimes even when you're inside the relationship, you don't even really fully know how bad it is until one day
Yeah.
you just think, what the heck? Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
usually the case. You don't really see it, right?
Yeah.
Objectively, it's just you're so in it,
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah. You're just, yeah, it just, yeah, there was a few things. It was about, yeah, it was about year 20, and all of a sudden I just thought, I don't know, that I was so desperately unhappy and something had to change. So, but yeah, but I have amazing kids, and we sometimes it's hard now to look back and reflect on the good memories, but I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the important things, and it's hard sometimes when we go through something which is unpleasant or trauma
Mm-hmm.
inducing
Mm-hmm.
to with some time like do the healing and look back at it and say, you know what, it's fine, like I don't regret any of it. It
Yeah.
taught me stuff. It's fine. It's just what life is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to do it with some of my stuff from when I was younger, and sometimes I'm okay with it. I'm just like, yeah, that's just fine. And sometimes I'm like, there's the bit of like the victim part of me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why did I have to go through this? Like, just like, no, stop it. It doesn't. It's fine.
No, I mean, which I think is, I'm going to say a lot of the last 3 years have, well, I've learned so many things, but one of the things that I keep getting back to is that two like opposite things can be true in terms of, you can be very much, I have had many moments over the last few years where I'm like, why did this happen and why did this happen? And yes, it's like valid to feel hurt and disappointed, and even like, yeah, some people seem to just have very comfortable, blessed, happy lives. And I mean, you never know what's going on, but yeah, so it's okay to let yourself, I think, sometimes wallow for a bit, and then also when terrible things happen to you, not your fault, but also your responsibility to keep getting. So I think the wallowing is okay, but then okay, no, I'm going to try to focus on the positive and move on. You also have to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's very nice. It's interesting because so I study sociology, and one of the things we've learned at school, and obviously I know because as we follow each other, I know you have very similar thoughts about women and feminism and that sort of things. And obviously marriage, very often it's very good for men, not so good for women. So yeah, definitely hearing that in your story.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But I'm glad you kind of took or were brave, took the leap, and said, okay, I need to change things. So which one? So you said the first one was like 7 years ago when you kind of said, okay, I'm going out of the marriage. And then you had another one after your 50th birthday when you said, okay, now I'm changing everything. So if you would have to pick, obviously you don't have to, it's kind of very hypothetical question. Which one was more like life changing, defining?
I don't, wow, that is huge. Well, I guess I would have to say the first, because the second would never have happened without the first. So, yeah, the leaving the marriage, and it was the start of sort of, I think, I don't know, the start of becoming who I eventually am now, or yeah. And but yeah, it was, as I said, I was very committed to my kids having a normal life, and which is why I stayed so long. And then yeah, it was just really hard. We just had been, anyways. I would say the leaving the marriage, I guess, the 3 years ago, the turning 50, the becoming a nomad. Somebody recently said to me that they're like, oh, you've changed so much. Like, you're not anything like you used to be. And I just had this weird thought. I was like, I feel like since I've started traveling, that I maybe am finally becoming who, honestly, like who I would have been if life hadn't happened to me. There was I had, like I said, my childhood was pretty tumultuous. There was a lot of conflict and a lot of there was just a lot. I think I went to like 12 different schools, like
Wow.
not necessarily changing every year. I had a couple of years where I was in the same school for 2 years or 3 years, but then I had years where I went to like 2, 3 schools in 1 year. So there was just a lot, and I just feel between that and then what sort of slowly happened over the course of being married. Anyways, I just feel like now I may be slowly actually discovering who I would have been if not, for all of the stuff that that happens to you and you react to everything. And yeah, I feel like I just spent 20, 30, 40 years just being, I was just reacting all the time. I don't know that I was ever, I don't know, being, I guess, who I would have been without always just having to react to outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Forces.
I hear what you're saying. On the other hand, I always think about myself, for example,
Uh-huh.
that without that, I definitely wouldn't be
Mm.
who I am now, right? Because
Yeah.
there is always this like opposite
Yeah.
forces, right? And I kind of feel like when you go from where you were before, where you're now, and you can truly acknowledge your force, your power, and how
Yeah.
you are controlling your life, it's very
Yeah.
different if you've never had the experience where you were reacting and you weren't really in the control, and
Yeah.
you look at it differently, right? You feel it differently. Like the control gives, or at least to me, it gives me
Yeah.
a sense of peace, like
Okay.
proper, despite
Yeah.
being, sometimes on a journey, and we might touch on like sometimes weird stuff happens, right, when you're
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, to me, it actually, I know that a lot of things I'm doing today I wouldn't be doing without having some experience in the
Mm-hmm.
past which wasn't that
Yeah.
amazing, right? And you
Right.
can really acknowledge your blessings, let's say, you have at the moment.
Yeah. And it's funny because like that wasn't to say like, yeah, like that I wouldn't have changed a single thing, because I feel like a lot of what happened with my childhood or whatever very much informed the type of parent that I was.
Mhm.
And some of this stuff, I feel like that, happened in my marriage and things like that has like made me very, what you touched on, like I know, like, the algorithm and different things, like some of the things that I'm pretty passionate about in terms of like, I don't know, a woman's like financial power and education, and just a lot of different things in terms of, I don't know, I don't think I ever talked to a woman under the age of 30 without giving her a big huge lecture on unpaid labor, and things like that. So like I feel like a lot of, yeah, a lot of the things that are very important to me and the things that I try to either share knowledge or experience or stuff is due to, different things that you go through. So, and yeah, definitely my childhood completely affected how I parented. And yeah, so yeah, everything sort of makes you who you are, and you don't want to take away any of those parts. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes when I do something new or somebody's like, oh, that's very brave, or do something that's kind of silly, and I'm really getting to a point where like I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, and I don't say that in a like. There's people in my life that I care very much that they think I'm a good person, but it's more I want to be a good person.
Yeah.
But like in terms of I don't care if you think my I don't know hair is ugly or my choices are weird or I'm silly, like that sort of thing. I don't care, and I just sometimes I feel like I will have a moment or a thought or a feeling. I'm like, oh, I think I was like that when I was 3 or 4, like, and then I had like 45 years of not being like that. And now I'm like, oh, I think some of that is coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So you mentioned, and obviously you've touched on a couple of those things now, but you mentioned some people are telling you are completely different than you were before you started traveling, and this whole kind of becoming new person. So who were you before? Who are you now? And like, what are the most obvious characteristics you gain after you started traveling? New perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, like, and it's tricky because I think also I don't think you can take COVID and maybe how that changed a lot of people. I would like to say that I was always somebody who was, socially aware, maybe. But I did have a pretty privileged life, and it was a pretty I'm going to say the word wrong, and I'm a teacher. I shouldn't. Homogenous, life. For a while, and I would definitely say that travel has just made me so much more aware of. I don't know. This is going to sound really stupid, like I was an idiot before, but like of just the enormous, like devastating like, inequities around the world. And it's also like made me so aware of like cultural differences and even just differences in how families are and stuff. And at the same time, the more I travel and the more I'm like, wow, that's so different, or this is new, or I would have never thought that. At the exact same time, the more I'm like, all people are exactly the same underneath in terms of just wanting like connection and I don't know, to feel good about themselves. And so that's something that I've learned. I mean, in terms of me being very different, on a totally shallow surface level, I did used to be somebody who is this is very like put together, and like I don't color my hair. I frequently don't wear makeup. I frequently don't do my hair. So I mean that's just a weird little shallow thing. I used to have really nice nails because I got like my nails done. I used to and this is nothing against people that do it, but I used to get like false eyelashes put on. Like I was very that was between the divorce and the travel. I went through this very like self-care, which at that point self-care meant making myself feel good about how I looked. And now that is not, I don't know, none of that stuff is sort of on my radar. It's not really important. And I don't know, it just takes too much money and time and I'd rather spend it on other things. So that is one thing. And then, I've just become, I have, and I love her dearly, but a friend who just recently, like, you've gotten so political since you started traveling. I'm just like, the fact that like there are people in the world that are not political, like I don't know how to explain to you what a privilege that is to not be political. Like you cannot be political because you live in a way that you like. I don't know. You just have all your rights are very nice and comfortable, and you live such a life of privilege. And it's, I would say when I first started traveling and I sort of started seeing this and I was very, like kind of hammering at people about it. And then now the more that I've traveled, because actually it's a weird thing about being in Hong Kong, because it's very much a class system here, and it's pretty. Yeah, it's a pretty surface place, like in terms of clothes and foods, and I don't know. So, which is just to say that it's made me realize, like, I don't know, friends that I have or people that I, know from where I used to live and stuff, like, I still try to be like, you should care about this stuff, even if it doesn't affect you. But I have, I guess, softened a little bit in terms of, I don't know, wanting to hit them over the head with a hammer with my superior judgment.
Yeah.
I had some of that for probably the first 2 years that I was traveling. Like, let me tell you about everything I've learned, and you should think the way I think. And I don't really, I'm kind of letting that go.
Yeah, so I now totally understand why the algorithm match does and why I felt we might get together or get along very well. I have very similar like experiences with traveling, and I haven't traveled as much as you did, or you have done that much traveling, but same as you, like I got back from last year. I was away for like half a year. I got back to London, and it was just a cultural shock. And I stopped wearing makeup, like here and there when I really have to. When I have to go to the office, sometimes I put on like a mascara, but like I detest it. So I'm just like, I don't want to do this. Such a bullshit. Like, why do I have to do this? Like, and I just completely lost like the sort of like symbols of whatever it is supposed to symbol to society, right? And like in a corporate place where you should wear this sort of dress and this sort of makeup, blah blah blah, because it signals some sort of power or whatever. Like, I'm so over it. Like, I don't want to do it. And same with the political, because I'm also very privileged. Despite growing up or being born behind the Iron Curtain, we still have it pretty good over there, and obviously it's becoming better and better as we progress within EU and all of that. But we always kind of felt like we don't have it really good because we were comparing ourselves with US, UK, all of that, and we're like, oh, we are so poor. It's like, Jesus Christ, like, no. And the worst thing is the majority of people still think that, and they're complaining all the time, and they feel they're really poor. And I'm just like, you're having such a beautiful life, and you do not know about it, and that's sad.
Yeah, it really is. I'm going to say in the last the traveling, Guatemala for me, that was my first big sort of thing in my nomad journey. I spent a month there, and I like stayed with a family. I did a thing where you could do you homestay, and then volunteered at an after school center, and then also took Spanish lessons. And I was there for a month, and I really thought I had done my research, and read lots of books. And throughout COVID, I got a lot more sort of aware of different things, and it started volunteering at a shelter in where I lived in Edmonton, and I felt like I was really prepared for this experience. And I got to my homestay, and I just was like, wow, like it totally overwhelmed me and humbled me. And the family that I stayed with were just incredible, like warm, loving, amazing people. But like where we lived and the conditions, and like they'd said, you're staying with the local family, and I'm like, oh, totally fine. But like, there was no internet unless you walked. There was the way the houses were built up into the walls, and if we walked to about halfway down towards the main road, there was a spot there so that everybody would go and hang out in this one. It was like outside of this one guy's house. He would often have folding chairs out there, because I was like, and like the no hot water and it was just there was so much that the first couple of days I was just like, But they were so happy and so kind and so warm. And after living like that for a month, yeah, I came back to Canada and I was just like, again, somebody that I, good friends with, very good people, that they were talking about like, oh, we have to redo our kitchen. We just don't have enough counter space. And I'm just like, this place that I stayed, the grandma, her name was Maria, although myself and the other volunteer, we just called her grandma. And they only had like one sink, and there was no counters. So, but they did have the table. But every morning, Maria would be doing all the dishes from the night before, and she would wash something and then have to walk over and put it on the table, because there was nowhere to set it, and then she would have to dry it, and then and they didn't have cupboards. There was no cupboards. There was some shelves. It was just like her doing the dishes took her about an hour and a half every morning, and she would never let us help. She would keep saying, your guests, no. I think that's what she's saying. She didn't speak any English, and my Spanish never got well enough to fully. We talked a lot, but I still don't actually know ever what we were talking about. She did talk to me a lot. She was lovely. But yeah, this is just to say that, yeah, Guatemala for me was like the biggest. After that, I just was like, yeah, all the material stuff just seems very irrelevant. And definitely in Canada, and definitely I grew up in Saskatchewan, but then I spent the last 25 years in Alberta. And yeah, and I don't know, you can't judge people for taking for granted their privilege of, giant pantries if that's all they've ever known as well, like it's not, which is why I really think everybody should travel. But because, and I really felt going there, I thought that I had done so much research and reading, and I just felt like, oh, the first couple of days I was just like slammed with, yeah, and so many things. Guatemala taught me so many things. That was a really huge month for me in so many ways.
Yeah, I completely understand. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you did homestay in Guatemala, and you mentioned pet sitting.
Oh yeah, when I'm in Canada, because so I sold my place, I sold all my stuff. I have about 8 bins, 4 suitcases in my brother's garage. But when I'm in Canada, which I go back quite a bit because, I love my kids and I like to see them. But I got into pet sitting. It's a global app called Trusted House Sitters. It's called Trusted House Sitters, but everybody on there, you're looking after pets and you go. So, when I'm in Canada, I do pet sitting. I just choose sits, mostly where my kids live. I do also do some sits on Vancouver Island because I just really love it. It's a very, very beautiful place there. But so when I'm in Canada, I do pet sitting. I did a few in the States. I have actually been looking for one in Hong Kong just because I thought that'd be fun. I do have a place to live here, but I thought it might be a fun thing to. Also, I just sort of miss animals. But so pet sitting, that's normally when I go back to Canada is I do the pet sitting. Because I have no place to live. I have to be somewhere. I'm lucky now. My son actually has a place big enough that I can crash with him if I need to. And my oldest daughter actually just now has a place with an extra bedroom too. But for a while, they're of the age where they were, either shared apartments with roommates or in one room places. And so, so I got into pet sitting, which actually I absolutely love and will probably always continue to do because I would say I've also learned a lot pet sitting, just meeting different people that you would just never meet otherwise. And usually when you do a pet sit, sometimes you would go the night before and then sometimes it's just the day of. Every once in a while, people have a weird, like they will leave and then they want you to come. I don't know. But it is just it's a way to, I don't know, sort of travel cheaply in Canada. Plus, I really, really, really love animals. And so I get all my dog and cat cuddles. And yeah, it's been kind of fun. And yeah, unexpected bonus, have met and become friends with a few, stayed in touch with a few people that have just been really interesting, wonderful people that I would never have met otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. I need to try it. I've been thinking about it for years now, never done it. But now I'm kind of like, I really should do it.
It is. My next thing is, I think when I'm done this part, I do want to try to get into it in Europe, because I think that would also be a fun way to see some parts of Europe that I might not normally. So yeah, I do really like it, and it goes well with the teaching English online. Yeah, that's my Canadian thing.
So after you're done in Hong Kong, you want to go travel some more, do something like proper nomading, or finding job somewhere again?
Yeah, and I've done, I think I will. So I did Guatemala. I had the first year that I was traveling. I spent some time in Africa. I did another homestay and a volunteer thing in Arusha. Also was in Kenya. And then last year at this time, I actually spent 3 months in Peru, which I think I will like to go back to Peru. I just, I really, really, some places are like, oh, this has been beautiful. I love it. But then, but there's so many places in the world. But I do feel like I would go back to Peru. Mostly the family that I rented from, I would like to go back and see them. But yeah, my tentative plan right now is I'm on a year contract here, is to do my contract and then do another year of just traveling all over while teaching online. I will have to go back to Canada. Probably I'll go back. I have to, but I'll go back twice. One of the times my oldest daughter is actually getting married next year, anyways, a while away. So, but yeah, I'm thinking I'll do a year of proper nomading where I'm moving around a lot. And then I might take another year-long contract somewhere in Southeast Asia. And my son, I went back to Canada over Christmas, and he was like, so how long are you going to be doing this thing? And I was like, honestly, I think maybe until one of you have kids. I don't know if any of you do. I mean, I think for sure they will. But I was like, I don't have any plans to stop. But I have realized that financially, it's not sustainable to just teaching online does not pay well enough for that to be. So I think I will nomad for a year, and then I'll take a teaching contract probably in a country in Southeast Asia, and then I'll nomad for a year, and I'll just keep doing that for, I don't know, until I get tired of it. We'll see. I don't have. Yeah, I think so. Somebody was like, I have found a weird not comfort. Well, no, I guess I find it comforting, or just a deep satisfaction in actually not knowing where I'm going to be this year, this time. I know for a lot of people, uncertainty is one of the things that a lot of people really don't like, that it causes a lot of people anxiety. But I don't know, I'm kind of have learned over this last little while to sort of embrace uncertainty and to look at it as more as possibilities. It's where will you be next year? I have no idea. Isn't that astonishing? I could be anywhere. Who knows, So yeah, I kind of like that. If you had asked me 10 years ago, that would have sounded absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But now I like the not knowing. Yeah.
Is it scary sometimes?
Oh, all the time. All the time. All the time. I all the time. I know. I am writing. I'm trying to write a book, and so I at the time that I started nomading, I also got really into journaling. I actually belong to like an online journal club, which is really cool. And I carry around, I have, which is very bad for my back and my suitcases, because I have about 12 of these, because I carry them with me. I don't know, because I've started to work on this book, and so I need to go back. But I just was laughing at myself because I don't know how many times I have written like, I'm so scared, like, but this is good. I'll do this thing. And I just keep going, and I'm like, wow, you just keep being scared all the time. Like I keep waiting to not be scared of certain things, and it's the same. I also keep, I literally was just writing this thing because I'm thinking about, I really want to go to Nepal, but I'm just like, that just seems too far out. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a true backpacker. Like, I mean, I've backpacked. I did the Camino de Santiago part of it. Like, but I just always feel like I'm pretending to be this really cool traveling nomad person. Like, I still doesn't feel like that is actually me. So yes, this is just a long way of saying I'm always scared. I'm always scared. I'm always scared. But yeah, I just do it scared.
That's what we have to do, right?
Yeah, you just,
That's what brave means, right? You do it
yeah,
despite
yeah,
being scared. And
yeah,
it's quite funny that often I get the question like, "Are you scared?" And it's like, "I am scared." Like all the
yeah,
time. Like,
yeah,
yes, I am scared, but you have to do
yeah,
it anyway.
yeah,
And recently I had, because I was recently diving in Egypt, and my dad's partner, she was like,
yeah,
"I really admire you that you're not scared." I'm just like, I am scared and I have to be scared. I'm going down to
oh,
30 meters or whatever. You want to be
yeah,
scared before you go down,
yeah,
because if you're scared, you do all the proper checks. You are aware
yeah,
of where you are, of your body, of all of that.
yeah,
So in that sense, I can really appreciate fear being, it's a good thing.
yeah,
Because without
yeah,
that, I would just go down, whatever, not check
yeah,
anything properly, like I wouldn't be aware of my surroundings, anything. I was just like, yeah, whatever. No, the
yeah,
fear is really good for you in these situations to kind of give you perspective, right? Or
yeah,
right
yeah,
state of mind, really. Yeah.
yeah. That is something. I am. I'm trying to decide between a couple of trips, but yeah, I have always wanted to learn how to dive, and I have heard about a really good diving school in the Philippines. So it's one
Nice.
of the things that I am researching, maybe on one of my breaks, because I have always wanted to dive. I love snorkeling, but I'm not certified as a diver.
You should try it. Like, it's amazing. Like, you
Right?
are like a cosmonaut, really. Like, it's,
Yeah.
but under the water. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of the best things I've ever done. It is scary. It still scares me sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, that it's that's how it should be, right? It's like, you
Yeah.
are not,
Yeah.
you're underwater. You should be
You should
aware.
be. Yeah. You should be. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so do it
No.
and do the Nepal, because that's going to be amazing. You can do it. Bloody hell, you did Akatanengo. Like, you, you can do
Oh,
that.
our Casananga, but yeah, that was the start of just like a realization of, you say, like being scared. Like there's lots of times I'm still scared, but there's been so many times that I have been scared, and then you just survive it. And so now, even sometimes when I'm in the middle, I'm just like, oh wow, this is really scary. But yeah, I mean, so far, I don't know, you've managed to come out the other end of all the scary things. So just keep going. But yeah, actually, I really want to go back to Guatemala. It's funny because I'm not a super, like, it's not a competitive thing. I'm not competitive. And I'm not even, just my son and I argue about this all the time because he's very much into excellence, and I'm just like, or you can just do things for fun and be kind of good at them. That's all right too. So the Akatanango, like you go up to the, I guess what they call the base camp or whatever, right where you see the sunrise. And honestly, the group that went up, there was 12 of us, and there was myself and somebody who's now become a good friend, George, and we were both like over the age of 50. And we got about a third of the way, and I was like close to crying, and I was just like, and the guide was saying like, I can take your backpack for, I don't know, you had to pay them, I think it was like $50 or something, and I was like, no, I want to do this myself. But George was like, we are not going to make it. Like, we're an hour or two, and then like we are paying them to take our backpack. So yes, so this tiny little 17-year-old boy had his pack, which had all of our food and everything. And then he just threw my pack on the front, and I hobbled the next 5 hours up without my pack. But you can get up at like 4 a.m. and do that last. It's only apparently. Did you do that?
No,
okay.
And
okay.
I know what you want to say. I know exactly what you want to say.
I'm going back because I got up. We started to go, and it's like shale sand, like it's you're crazy, having to, and I knew that I wasn't going to make it, and B, that then one of the guides would have to, because we had 2 guides, there was 12 of us, would have to like stay behind to help me, and I knew it wasn't going to happen, and so I said, no, you guys go, and it was fine. I sat at base camp. I ironically couldn't get into the little hut thing because somebody else had the key or whatever. We had these little, they were kind of like tents, but anyways, so I was actually stuck outside in the very, very cold, but saw what will, I don't know, maybe will always be the most beautiful sunrise of my life. I don't know, maybe I'll be lucky enough to see another one that's even better. I'm not sure, but it was like, I just sat there like crying because I was like, I'm literally on the side of a volcano. I was up all night watching an active one erupt over and over, and now I'm watching a sunrise. We're above the clouds. I'm in Guatemala. I don't even think I knew the country Guatemala until I was maybe in my 40s. Like, I'd never even heard of it. But having said all of that, since then, I have gotten into running. I've done a couple of half marathons. I have done way more treks and stuff. And now I think I could make the summit.
Beautiful.
So I want to go back, I don't know, at least before I hit 60, I want to go back and try to make that summit because I think I could now. I think I could.
So great. That is so great. And I understand 100%. Like, right? It's in my head as well. I want to go back. Yes? I want to summit.
Okay. Well, you know what? We will stay in touch, and maybe we could do
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to. Yeah, I really want to do that summit. I mean, I have no regrets, and yeah, it was the most, it was actually really sweet because there was one other girl that came back with me, and I was sitting watching the sunrise, and I literally started crying. It was so beautiful, and I was just having such a moment of, from where I grew up, and it was just a moment. And she was very, very sweet. But she was like, oh, don't cry. It's okay. You didn't make the summit. Like, I didn't do it either. And I was like, no, sweetie. Like I'm crying because I'm like 53 and on this 51, 52, however old I was then. And I'm on the side of a volcano in a country I didn't even know existed, like when I was a child. And I was having a very deep moment. And she just thought I was really sad about not being able to make it. It was very sweet, but I do every once in a while think, oh.
Yeah, I feel you. I truly do feel you.
Yeah,
beautiful, very inspiring, very inspiring. I'm looking forward to you going back and summit it. It's going to be great.
We will see.
All right. One more question I'm asking everyone.
Okay.
Was there any act of kindness someone extended to you which you still remember? Doesn't have to be big, could be small, but maybe change your perspective or how you behave towards people. Obviously, I know you've done so much changing and life-changing perspective stuff, but is there something specific you could tell us?
I feel like I have a few, truthfully. I mean, they're both like not one specific thing, but just I would say the family that I stayed with in Guatemala. This is kind of a weird thing, but they like I really wanted to get good at Spanish, and they did not speak any Spanish. And I mean, I had some help because my housemate, the other volunteer, he was pretty fluent. So at the beginning, he did a lot of, but there was just really but there was like a lot of times where I was kind of tired and kind of frustrated because, sometimes Dan wasn't there and it was just hard. The meals were in Spanish, but anyways, overall, they were just so kind and generous. But Renee, it's weird because he was actually a couple years younger than me, but he was, the head of the household. But he drove me back to Antigua or to Guatemala City from Antigua to catch my flight, and it was about like an hour or whatever. Anyways, we were driving and still doing my very slow Spanish speaking because I got a little bit better over the month, but still nowhere near fluent. And then we were getting into Guatemala City, and he was like, "Where you're staying? There's not like." I did a weird homestay. Anyways, it was a weird thing. He was like, "Should we stop it?" What he said, and this is like after me being there for a month and them not speaking any English, and he just turned and he said, "Should we stop and get you something to eat before you get to your B&B?" And he said it in English. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
I never spoke English. And he's like, "If I had spoke English to you, you wouldn't have gotten this good at your Spanish."
Wow.
And for like a whole month, there was like times when because I was trying to ask him things or find out stuff. And I just think, I was like, how frustrated were you? Like, you could have we had conversations that took like 25 minutes that if you had just spoken English would have taken us 5 minutes. Because that's how bad I was. But anyways, that is one thing. That sounds like a weird thing that it was kind, but he was just like, "Well, I wanted you to get the full experience." Yeah. And then, so that was one. And then I would say the wanting to go back to Peru. I was going to Peru. I was going to Cusco. I kind of wanted the experience of like living somewhere, like I just wanted to live in a wildly different place for like 3 months, have that experience. And I don't know, I joined this like expats group, Cusco expats group before I went, and just said like, I'm looking for a place to rent. Like, I don't know if somebody needs a roommate or has like his name's Cody. We still keep in touch. I will go back and visit him and Denitza and the baby. And anyways, he's actually from Texas, but he had married a woman from Cusco, and his in-laws had like kind of kind of like a weird house that had this compoundy thing in the background. Anyways, he reached out and was like, he always called me sis. He was like, "Hey sis, you should come and rent my in-laws." And anyways, he picked me up at the airport, and him and Denitza, who she's actually both an English and a Spanish teacher, and the whole family, Edward, Margarita, they just like enveloped me in kindness, and they weren't overly like, I did all my own stuff. My room was kind of separate, but they also, I don't know, it was my birthday 2 weeks after I went there, and like Cody was like, "Hey," I don't know, they saw on Facebook. Anyways, they like bought me a cake, and they just were like over and over and over, like the kindest people. And just, I had such an amazing experience living there. And I was on my own and I did all my own stuff, but they were just like always there, and always, "You should do this," or "Have you been here? Here's how do you take this." And they're just the kindest people. They're very kind people. Anyways, they run an NGO, and they help like underprivileged kids out in the rural areas. And they really changed me. And just, this would be beautiful. The two that I would think of. Yeah, they are really beautiful people. Yeah, I've been very lucky.
Oh, loving it. Beautiful. Okay, I think that's a nice touch at the end. Is there anything more you would like to tell us or share, or advice for people?
I guess I would just like to encourage everybody to travel, but also like it doesn't have to be big, huge trips, but just going a little bit outside of your own comfort zone to teach you that you can, you know? Yeah. And also just going outside of your comfort zone more to like just meet and see other people that don't look and live and talk exactly like you, because I think that just also just helps you appreciate your own life more. And I don't know, I just think it makes you more compassionate to others, but then it also, I don't know, on a purely selfish level, just actually makes you, I think, feel a better person. Yeah.
Nice.
That would be it. Yeah. This has
Agree.
been really nice.
I know, right? Very nice, considering we've never met. I'm quite loving this.
I would say I guess I would say other thing. If there's any other middle-aged women out there that are thinking about like wanting to travel, but like they either don't have people to travel with, or there is, if you go on, I'm going to say Facebook especially, I'm not necessarily a big fan of Facebook, but in terms of what they can do for connecting people, I have discovered, I've joined a couple of groups, solo female travel groups, and I have for sure, top of the head, like I just actually, a woman from Canada that I met through a travel group was in Hong Kong. I spent Sunday showing her around. Like there's a lot of ways to connect with people, and I have become friends with complete and total random strangers in the last 2 or 3 years just through travel and putting yourself out there. So anybody that is thinking of traveling, like there's lots of ways to meet people if you're scared of doing it and, being completely alone. There's a lot of ways to meet people.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually nowadays, I prefer to travel solo because I know I'm going to meet people. Like I've did a group trip recently to Egypt, and it was like my first group trip since like 2017. Yeah. So I was nervous. Yeah. It turned out well. It was good. But in the end of the day, I knew, like, I haven't spoken to anyone new apart of like the crew on the boat. But outside of that, like we were always in the other group, right? Oh, right. And it's kind of limiting to that sort of the group thing, basically. Right. Yeah. So I do like to go on my own where you don't know who you're going to meet. Yeah. And it really pushes you to talk to people, connect with people, and see the kindness, because you have to connect through kindness, right? Like you're not going to connect being rude to someone. Yeah. So.
No, it is. Yeah, I do. There's somebody just asked, like, aren't you like lonely? And I was like, I mean, there's every once in a while, sometimes, people can live in the same place and live in the same house with other people and be lonely. But like very much, but no, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And I think when you are by yourself, you sort of, you push yourself to reach out to other people, and you can make some really interesting friends that way. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Thank you again for joining me for this episode. Like, I find it truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing everything with us. And maybe we will do another one once you do the Akatanengo thing.
We will stay in touch. I will let you know if I get back there. You can join me.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, take care.
Cool. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Ordinary Lives. The story you've heard today is more than just a tale. It's a seed of empathy and understanding. When we truly listen to each other's experiences, we don't just hear a story, we become part of it. And this is how we scale kindness, one story, one conversation at a time. By recognizing the value in every life, we create ripples of connection that can transform our communities and beyond. So, carry this story with you. Let it inspire you to listen more deeply to others. Until next time, remember that every life tells a tale worth hearing, and every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to create extraordinary change, one step at a time.